We are live. I gotta switch over our scene. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beta Readers and Critique Partners. We are so excited to have you all today, and I have some wonderful guests. But first, let's talk about what we're going to be talking about. This is what it's about. First drafts are just the beginning of our story's journey. Getting to that story in front of a few trusted others will help make your manuscript the best it can be. So how do we do that? Beta readers and critique partners to the rescue. We'll chat today about the difference between the two, where to find them, and how to keep them. So I have a few things to share with you guys. So just, gotta be able to type the right. So this event just will be popping up throughout our chat. There are some other events going on now, so there are links to those going on, and I have a wonderful set of panelists. Let's see if I can type today. So I'm gonna share with everybody. Oh, and we have my wonderful mod Misade, so just had to give her credit. So LauraVAB, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us why you're here? So
hi, I'm Laura LauraVAB, which is why you can call me LauraVAB. And I am a hybrid author, so meaning I'm both traditionally and indie published. And yeah, I spend a lot of time with critique groups on both sides of the red pen. So that's why I'm here.
Cool. LauraBones, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'm LauraBones, and I'm a Twitch streamer, writer, and world builder. And just an avid book reader, basically. And I have read a few at BetaRead for wonderful ShyRedFox up there.
Wonderful beta reader.
And, and some other critiques that I've done, just like of things that people have written and handed in to me, and I've discovered that I quite enjoy doing it.
Cool. And LRhea, you want to go next?
And I am LRhea. I am a Twitch streamer at twitch.tv/LRhea. And I do developmental editing and talk a lot about story structure and how to get the right epic fantasy arc. And I also have worked as a critique partner with some fellow writers who are not on Twitch, but hopefully, always looking for more.
Awesome. And we just got rated, so welcome, raiders. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll turn it over to Laura.
Which Laura is that?
Oh, LauraVAB.
Okay, because we're in different orders on Zoom, so I don't know which one you're pointing to.
Okay, sorry, I assumed it was the same.
So LauraBones is under me, and then you're over here, and so it's fine. So I just want to first, based on what LRhea said, God bless developmental editing. There we go. That is a thing. So I saw a question just go by recently on, do we wait and get feedback on a finished manuscript or a work in progress? I'm like, oh, it is so much easier to erase a line than to jackhammer concrete. Please, developmental editing is your friend. Get some feedback early to find out if your story is going where it needs to go. So basically I'm full of opinions, and I will talk until the room runs out of air. And since we're separate, that's a lot of air just for me right here. So everybody please jump in. So I think maybe starting with a definition of what critique partners and beta readers are, because they're frequently used interchangeably and they're not really the same thing. Is that?
Sure.
So a critique partner is someone who I expect to have a fair amount of knowledge of the writing craft. Frequently, these are other writers who are publishing, at or above my level. And I am going to ask them for feedback. Developmental editing might be part of that, but I'm going to ask them for feedback on how the story is coming together. Beta readers are typically not professionals, so they certainly can be, but it's not the expectation in the same way. And they're the people who will read a more or less finished draft and then give feedback on it. Whereas my critique partners are usually seeing very rough, very gory things that I don't ever want my beta readers to come across. So, and And then other people, please give feedback on where you would say that differently.
It's exactly how I would have said it.
So finding these people, once you find good ones, do not ever let them go. And I don't mean that in the super creepy way, but pay them their weight in sushi, give them whatever they want, ship dark chocolate to their house. This is a thing I have done. Like absolutely keep these people because good critique partners will make your life so much better and your work so much better, and you can't afford not to have them. The end. That's it. There's my soapbox. We're done with the stream. Like, yeah. So
I know for my book, my beta readers they read a fairly raw story. It was as good as I could edit it at the time, and I cannot thank them enough for the input that they gave, because they helped me flesh out what I needed and cut parts I didn't need, and it was just, I am so grateful.
So one of the things, and again, I'm going to keep talking until somebody stops me. Amy has the power. She can mute me. It happened. But one of the things that I think finding these people can feel like a real chore, and at times can be a real chore. This is where networking is your best friend. I am in a critique group. We have met monthly for, at this point, 9 years, which in critique group years is like a millennium. Okay, like it's a long time. We got started at a writers' conference, and we just realized that we lived in the same city. We started meeting. We set up some structure at the beginning, and we've added people since then. We've lost a couple people, but the core group is still going. And 9 years later, and oh my gosh, I would not be doing what I was doing now if I did not have that monthly accountability. Yes, you will write something because you can't stare at these people and not have pages. And then just having them come back and say, this probably made sense in your head.
So LauraBones and LRhea, what have you been able to find with your beta readers and critique partners, or your experiences being them?
Yeah, my experience being and looking for a critique partner, because I think in critique partners you're looking for a partnership usually. So you want some kind of, usually it's some kind of property of equivalent exchange there, where I read your work, you read my work, and there's what you're looking for is somebody who's in the same sort of writing journey as you are, or someone who's a bit further along it. You want someone you can learn from, and if you're with someone who's but by that same extension, you also usually would probably want to be the critique partner for someone who isn't as experienced, so that you can pass on what you've learned on your own journey. And I think there's also something to be said for the when you are the more experienced critique partner, learning from the sort of naivety or the littler mistakes or the littler things that at the earlier stages that they can add into your writing, that sort of like they can inject that level of naivety of craft, I guess. They can serve as being somewhat eye-opening for because I think sometimes you get tunnel vision on your work, and the less critically experienced or critically like super laser prone are likely to help you identify those areas.
I think for me, I've never looked for beta readers yet, but for instance, Fox had put out a call for beta readers in a Discord channel that we were in together, and I just thought, I really want to help. But then I thought, but I've never really done it before. What can I bring? I don't know if I, would be able to, bring anything to the book. But I thought, no, just go for it. You've been reading forever. You love books. And they're probably just looking for somebody that, that's it. They love books, and somebody, how does a reader see my novel? How does just the average reader that I'm going to be selling it to see my novel? So just don't be afraid to put yourself forward and actually do that read. It doesn't matter how nervous you are or how you think, I wouldn't be able to do anything. Just do it.
Yeah.
And I think the other good thing was from the perspective was that Fox had a list of of things that she wanted and didn't want feedback on or whatever. So that helped like narrow down a little bit, what do I say? What does she need? You know, so having like defined guidelines as to what exactly it is that she was looking for really helped me zone in on what I could give feedback on.
Yeah, I gave a list of like 18 questions. I was afraid I was asking too much. But then a couple of my beta readers were like trying to line edit. I'm like, this is not the time for line editing. This is the so yeah.
And setting those expectations. If somebody who doesn't wallow around in the publishing industry for fun is not necessarily going to be familiar with those terms and what you want at that moment. So can I just say for a moment, just emphasize what LauraBones just said, is if you are a beta reader, guys, like, please do that. It does not require special, it's not your job to fix anything. You just have to say, I liked it or I didn't. The end. Like, as a critique partner, if I am editing for somebody, I need to, help out a little bit on what we might be able to do to fix this. But editors don't write your story for you. So don't be worried about that either. But a beta reader, it's not your job to fix it. It's just your job to give your honest feedback. You can't possibly be wrong because it's just your honest feedback. So,
and letting them know where you're confused really will help identify the parts that need to be clarified or fixed or expanded or cut. Seriously, please give us your opinions.
If you give it a manuscript back and it's just got smiley face, question mark, frowny face, that like all through the margins, that's it. That's complete. You did great. Yeah.
I think one of the most important things that I look for in a beta reader is I usually don't want them to have any kind of editing experience or any kind of like super critical of writing generally. Like I go for people who I like fantasy fiction, and I'm like, great, I just wrote a fantasy fiction book. Would you like to maybe help me with some feedback on it if this is something you would have picked up off the shelf? But yeah, I think the critical feedback you want always with the critique partner, and then or the editor if you want to, you can always pay for someone for that. But for beta readers, you want you want a consumer.
Yeah, and I saw a question go by in the chat, like, what if I only think it's boring? Please tell me. I need to know if it's boring. That is the opposite of what I want to achieve. Just tell me that. Yes. Yeah. And yeah.
Do you want me to go through the questions as they come in, or do we want to do it at the end?
I'm not in charge. Sounds great. Whatever you want to do.
You're leading the panel. You tell me what you want.
Oh, no, I'm not. Am I listed as a panel lead?
You are.
All this time I thought you were the lead. Oh, well, hey, look, let me put on my moderator hat. Look how official we are now. Okay, I seriously thought you the
maybe I was. I don't care.
Who put me in charge? That was a thing that should have happened. Okay.
It's hard to do both.
Sorry, I would have done a much better job of like organizing and presenting, like having questions for all of you.
I actually think it was listed as me. I'm trying to remember now, and I don't have time to go look at the thing.
We're good. We're great. Like nobody can reach me to slap me. It's awesome. We're great. So okay. So how have you? I'm going to go back to the thing I keep hearing from people so often is, how do I find critique partners and beta readers? So just real briefly, like, how do you recruit, or how have you been recruited? And I know LauraBones said that it came up on Discord, but like other ways that you have seen this done, because honestly, like, that is probably the most daunting step of the process. That, and then having people tell you it's boring, but we don't want to talk about that. I want to cry on camera. So.
What I did is I was already involved in the World Anvil community and on several Discord servers, and they were very open to allowing people to say, hey, I'm looking for beta readers. And so I posted it on a World Anvil page on my website with a, beta readers wanted, and they could sign up and email me there. And then I also posted on my Discord server and a couple other Discord servers. And then I found 8, and that was what I could handle. So I was so thrilled to have that many. So
I used to work at a university, and if you are anywhere near a university, there's always creative writing classes and creative writing groups and clubs, and you don't always for some of the like clubs and groups and outside groups and whatnot, you can find sort of drifting away from the university. The ones that don't require you to be like a student or anything, you can connect with people who usually they are students or people who are doing it for fun. So I found night groups that were open to non-students and connected in with them. But then, of course, yeah, Discord is also a great place. Online Twitter, you can also put out calls for beta readers on Twitter, which there's a very sometimes thriving writers community on Twitter that you can hashtag and reach out to, although that can be fairly hit or miss.
Yeah, I think for me, like just part of large Discord communities and things like that. And there will be people, especially some of the ones I'm in, will have a channel maybe dedicated to that kind of thing. That people that are interested in beta reading, but maybe don't really know a Discord group that they're part of. So that person might feel a little bit more familiar and less daunting for them to, first time approach and be like, oh, I wouldn't mind being a beta reader, than to a call out of somebody you don't know, say on Twitter, but it could be someone of a Twitter group, but someone within the communities that you're in, you'll feel more comfortable then saying, yeah, okay, I'll step up and do this, if you know what I mean. That's how it felt for me anyway, than a call out from somebody I didn't know.
And kind of related to that, I just want to mention very quickly, editing is a paid service. Beta reading typically is not. And I've seen several times recently, people have been contacted by, I beta read and this is my fee. And no, beta reading is a chance to get in on a book early and to give honest feedback on it. It is not an editorial service and it's not typically paid. So if somebody's asking you for money, thank them nicely, go find someone else.
I do try to reward my beta readers. I do try. So.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, you don't let those people go. You ship chocolate to their door, that's fine. But if they're coming saying, hi, I will read this for you and I will take money for it, unless they're an editor, no. And editors usually don't come to you either. You have to get in line. So yeah.
The other thing I think it's also worth noting is you don't have to be a student you can audit classes at universities as well. So if and that's usually either free or it's very inexpensive, like $50 or something to audit, like per credit or something. And it's that's an easy way to get into creative writing circles at like a college or something. Get FaceTime with like professors, people who have like a lot of experience. Usually the professors in creative writing programs have like experience in the publishing world and whatnot. So it's a very easy way to sort of get into the crowd. And there you can find among students there and among the professors and whatnot, you'll thriving critique partner audiences and places where you can get tons of feedback for your work.
Cool.
And don't be afraid. Like if you're looking for a community of people who want to write and want to publish, you don't need to find your exact subgenre niche. Okay, so I actually love that my critique group has a number of different genres represented, because when I write the thing, then I'm like, of course this works, because this is how epic fantasy always, we just have these assumptions in place. And the sci-fi or the literary writers like, but why are they in the tavern? Like, okay. All right. I should maybe like not just be a lazy fantasy writer and actually explain these things. So you can get a lot. Now, your beta readers, you probably want somebody who is reading in your genre because you're trying to get the genre reader reaction. But critique partners, they can be anything as long as they're willing to work with you.
So what might be a red flag for you about like beta readers? If you're thinking about like, these are some, I had a beta reader and maybe like, or I'm looking for a beta reader. Do you have a filtering process at all? Or is it just anyone who comes?
I think this might vary depending on what stage of your career you're in. really. So yeah, if it's a first book, oh, thank God you're not my mom. Let's read this. Okay, that's legit. And then as you develop a little bit more of a following, you can start, your most diehard fans might be a good beta reader, right? And then they're going to be thrilled to do that because they're getting early access. Or I exchange both reading and editorial services with a group of colleagues, and so we just basically have a barter system. So there's different ways you can do this.
I would say red flags are non-communication, because I had one who just didn't communicate with me and then finally told me at the end it just wasn't for him, and I was like, would have been nice to know. Then also anybody who wants to tell you how to do your story, because I had a little bit of that, and I'm like, it's my story. So
yeah, like beta readers are not editors. They get to tell you their reactions. Their reactions are never wrong, but they don't get to tell you how to fix it because that's not their job.
I think, Amy, you mentioned that you have a list of questions, or actually, I think Bones mentioned that. And
yeah, let me see if I can pull up I did bring it up. Okay.
Because even though I had the questions, I still didn't like go through list by list, like answering the questions. I kind of so that just gave me an idea of what she was looking for, and I could compile it into paragraphs. So it was like, do the characters make sense? Do you understand because of the setting it was in, there's maybe things people weren't familiar with. Are there any disconnects? And so that's kind of how I went about it. I just went at it from like the characters, how I felt about the characters and how the characters felt to me. So I just put down my honest feelings about that. And then, as Shy said, bits where I was read it and had to go back a couple of times, and I was like, oh, I just don't get this. Am I dumb, or is something just making sense? So I just thought, these are a couple of bits that confuse me. It might just be me, but I'll put it in anyway because.
And that really helped. Seriously.
It was disconnected a little. So yeah, so it's really just as you're reading, just your honest reactions that you have, try and make a note of those. So like where you giggled out loud, or got confused, or got really angry that something happened, or just the things like that get reactions from you when you're reading it. Just put those down.
It helps if people if people got some of the jokes. So
no, inline live response reader comments are the best thing. Except the best.
One of my beta readers, I loved her to pieces. She had some really good input, but she was giving it to me as she was reading it. I had to tell her, okay, I'm stepping away. This is stressful. So I am going to put the link to my beta reader page, and I'm going to pop that in front of our Zoom meeting so people can kind of see what I did. I got to make it smaller.
While you're setting that up, I'll just say that there are couple of ways to do this, and the one that's working is the one that's right. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like Shy put out a fairly detailed, give me very specific feedback on these specific questions.
I had 16 questions.
Okay. So and obviously LauraBones says that worked. So, and it worked for Shy, so everybody wins. Some beta readers will look at that and have flashbacks to 7th grade book reports, and they'll panic. So you might just ask people, do you want me to give you a way to give some feedback that's a little more guided, or do you want to just read it and give me your responses? And then so for the people who don't want the interview, you can say something like, would you recommend this to a friend? And just so you're still pulling out feedback, but they're not feeling as much pressure. Totally, both ways are good. Both ways work. It just depends on the person who's reading. So find what is going to help them give you the best feedback.
So did anybody else have anything to share about their beta call for beta readers? Okay, because I can always share links if you guys find anything you want to have shared. So
I was curious what some of those questions were.
Oh, you didn't
Yeah,
get to see it? I'm sorry.
I
Okay.
thought you said you were going to put it on the screen. I was like totally
well,
expecting.
I put it, I put it on the screen for the stream. I'll read them aloud.
Oh,
And these were, I got them from somewhere else. It said, I have a link. Yeah, the questions were taken from 15 questions to send beta readers, first beta readers, and it says, please steal. So I did. I won't read them all, I'll just read a few of them. So it was like, did the story hold your interest from the very beginning? If not, why not? If you quit reading, where was it and why? Did you get oriented fairly quickly at the beginning as to whose story it is and where and when it was taking place? If not, why not? Could you relate to the main character? So these were very specific to the reading of it, and my beta readers seemed to do well with that. And I didn't get answers on every single one, and I let them know. I just these are a start. So.
and again, all feedback is valid feedback. If you're a beta reader, your reaction is not wrong. It is your reaction, right? I have twice had people come back to me like a year later and be like, oh, man, I totally forgot I had this manuscript, but I found my kids were drawing on this paper in this house and it turned out it was your book. Isn't that funny? And I'm like, it's hilarious. Okay. But that also is a perfectly valid response. If they forgot they were reading the book, and I'll tell you, those manuscripts, like, I'm not even mad. Okay, they got better. But if they forgot that they were reading the book, that is really good information for me as the author. Okay. And I can tell those stories because they did get better. So
What's the most amount of beta readers you've had at once?
that makes it sound like I'm organized and I know the answer to that question.
If you had to estimate, maybe.
I usually do just a couple of people at a time, like, maybe because if I give it to 3 people and 3 people come back and say, yeah, I know your protagonist is, but I really hate him. Okay. Like, I can't stand to be with him. I want to make sure that I have time to adjust that and send it to another group of people I have not already burned. Okay. So it's the same thing about, don't query 200 agents at once, because if you get the same piece of feedback from all of them, that's it. You've set fire to all those bridges. So yeah, I just tend to roll. And then also it allows me to be a little less, I don't have a list of 12 people that I send to all on the same day. So
See, I wish I would have kind of done that, but I didn't know. I was new. So.
But now we have this panel so that everyone knows. Yes.
Oh, 10, Basic Dragon says. Groups of 10.
Oh,
10
wow.
players, and then 10, and then 10.
That's a lot of input.
Yeah.
Even with
That's-
8, I had like 150 things I had to try to keep track of, and I was like, So,
I'm not
You
sure I
had, like,
know
a
enough
whole-
people to do groups of 10.
You had a whole spreadsheet and everything.
it was a
very
big Trello
impressed with
board.
this.
It was painful.
So we're talking a lot about beta readers. Let's move back and hit critique partners a little bit, because I think, they're more critical to the process. Beta readers are further down. I'm getting close to publishing when I have beta readers. Critique partners, I am, I'm like, hey guys, I wrote this chapter this week. Please help me fix it. Okay. And so this is where I'm going to want people who are a little more professional about writing, as opposed to being avid consumers. And still, and I don't remember if it was Neil Gaiman or who it was who said this. I'm sorry, I'd love to give credit, but if somebody tells you the story doesn't work for them, they're right. If they tell you how to fix it, they probably aren't. And so they always want to, I need to take feedback, but it's not a prescription, right? I just need to know, hey, this is confusing. This may or may not be the best way to fix it. But critique partners are going to be people that you are working with, usually in a exchange system. So I will read your pages, you will read mine. It's really, really good to set up parameters in advance so that people have we're exchanging 2,000 words. So I don't give you 3 pages and you give me 50, right? like, you know what you're signing up for. And then I could go on for literal weeks about how feedback should work, but we don't have time for that. So I'm going to let other people speak about how to give and receive feedback, and then I will have my short condensed soapbox at the end.
So I've been going first a lot. Somebody else go first this time.
I will get my dice and I will roll them and I will pick someone. Come on.
So I think one of the most important things, and this is partly coming from like an editing perspective, is you want to be constructive in your feedback, especially as a critique partner. I mean, you're looking at really raw work usually, and so and there are some things to sort of prioritize in terms of feedback. Of course, you're prioritizing things like the story over maybe like the mechanics. Obviously, at this point, not every comma is going to be in the right place because not every sentence is going to stay. But at the same time, you want to be, there's like a fine line. You still want to be critiquing the prose. You want to be able to critique things like the flow of the writing, as well as the content. So, I mean, you're essentially doing the work of developmental editing, but at a much earlier stage than if you were actually approaching a developmental editor for your manuscript. But the most important thing is whenever you have something to say about, like, you know, this needs fixing or this needs taking out, I think it's super important to always try to offer suggestions, productive, constructive suggestions as to, you know, I don't think this was working, but I think it could have worked a lot better like this, or more like this section over here. You did some really great things. And don't forget to leave positive comments as well. Like, you did this really, really well. And that's something that I see that a lot of like a lot of editors can often forget to leave positive comments and to tell writers, like, give some positive encouragement, some what's that, conditioning. There we go, positive and negative conditioning there, because you want to encourage those good habits that they get into.
LauraBones, do you have any opinions to share?
On the critique partnering thing, not so much. I mean, I'm kind of writing a book at the minute, and I mean, the boyfriend might not be the best critique partner, but to have it read back aloud, if you've got somebody that's willing to read the thing back out aloud to you as well, just helps a lot with flow and stuff. So it's all well and good having like them say, you know, oh, fix this, but sometimes you're hearing it back, you just, oh, that, you know, the sentences don't flow right or whatever. You just pick up on so many different nuances if you can get somebody that's actually willing to do that. You could just record yourself listening to it, but people don't like the sound of their own voices, so getting somebody else to do it's probably better.
I just spent the last couple of days wrapping up an audiobook, and the book's been out for 2 years, but I just getting the audiobook uploaded. Final upload went up yesterday, and recording that, and I'm just like, what was I thinking? It's like, you know, the book's been out for 2 years, it's getting good feedback, all of these things, but still, like, saying it out loud, and you're like, I could have done that sentence differently. Yeah. Amy, do you have any thoughts on feedback?
Yeah, just kind of, I can share about the process I've been through with my critique partner, Liz. She and I both started out at the same point. She hasn't finished her book yet, but we started out beginner authors, and seeing each other grow. It's like, you know, there wasn't as much positive to say at first because we were growing, you know, that we had so much to improve. As our relationship over the last couple of years has developed, you know, I can tell her, you know, you're doing great at this. Remember how you started? Can you see the difference? And that feedback has been so good for us because, you know, not everything we write is great, but it's improved immensely. I don't have white room syndrome half as much as I used to. So it's been a really, really good growing thing for her and I. So,
yeah. So my day job is in behavior. And I talked last night about animal behavior, but I'm certified in human behavior too. And honestly, it's all the same stuff. We're not that special. So what I do for a living is use positive reinforcement to refine, you know, actions, right? That's what I do. So giving critique it's exactly the same thing. And I'm just going to say, you cannot cannot have too much positive feedback. Like, it's not going to happen. Bury somebody, even if you're like, oh, well, they probably know that I liked this scene. No, because then when I change that scene and people are like, wait, we loved that. And I'm like, well, nobody said anything about you loved that, right? Make sure you tell them what to keep in as well. I do want to toss out like my personal peeve is so many writing workshops will talk about using the sandwich method. And
knew that was coming up because it was in the chat too.
Oh no, okay. Sorry, chat. I'm about to stomp on this. Say something good, say something critical, say something good. And so you've got the sandwich in there, and sometimes you'll rename the stuff in the middle. But from a behavior perspective, this teaches people to ignore the positive feedback. And I'm not going to go into why, because we don't have time for that and it's not my show, but just trust me. What if I know the first thing you say that's nice is immediately going to be followed by something bad, you start taking all of that and running it backwards up there. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Just give tons of positive feedback. Also point out what needs to be, hey, I was super confused here. I have no idea the motivation of this character. Why is he going out the window? I don't know. And then, but then also just continue to be honest about things you do like. The ratios will sort themselves if you are particular about giving good feedback, which culturally we're conditioned not to. So just keep that at the front of your head, that positive feedback is a good thing. And then don't worry about trying to do it in order, because ultimately I think that does more harm than good. And I could give you a thesis why. We don't have time for that. Just take my word for it. So yeah. So sorry, chat, whatever was going on in the chat about the sandwich method. The end. You can get mad at me later. So just give me positive feedback while you're also telling me why I'm wrong. So
I am going to remind our chat, if you do have questions, we just have a few in the queue. Use the channel points down at the bottom. That way I can keep track and make sure that we have enough time to be able to answer them all. So please use the channel points. So click on the little fox icon down there, and there'll be one channel point, which by now you should have plenty of channel points to ask several questions. Use that, type in your question, and I'll be able to see it pop up here. So.
One quick thing to add on that note of the sandwich method, I think, sort of reversing that and going to when you're asking a beta reader, a critique partner, for feedback on something, really, really try not to poison the well by saying something like, oh, I know this isn't good enough, but would you mind giving it a look? Or if you insert your own criticism of your work, and usually it's I think, or sometimes it's a way of, trying to fish for compliments. But even if it's not, sometimes it's also just anxiety, or you're anxious about handing off your work to somebody else. You really don't want to preface trying to prime them so that they feel either the need to go softer on their critique for you, or to compliment compliment something that maybe wasn't due a compliment. So if you say, I'm really nervous about my prose here, and the next thing they're going to do is they're going to want to compliment your prose to make you feel better, but maybe that's not the most productive thing for getting your book published or worked on or finished.
Or they'll believe you and, oh no, it's not as good as I was expecting. Even if they'd come in cold, they wouldn't have been, primed to think one way or another. So yeah, it's not going to do you any favors any direction.
I have a question for us. So we've been kind of talking about the other side, but for us, what are some things that we can do to take that input? At least for me, I usually have to step away for like at least a day, if not more, and not look at it. So I can go and then read it and then step away and then go through it again. So what do you guys do?
I have a whole week-long session, like seminar worth of material on this too. So I'll let somebody else answer first.
I have no experience in this one. I have never employed a beta reader, so.
But when you get feedback, what do you do with it? Like, I know you've entered contests, the World Anvil competitions.
I guess, you just, sometimes you go, no, I really don't agree with you there. There are sometimes points where people do give you feedback, and it's just, you get their point, but at the same time, you just know that's, I think, and if you feel truly that that's a thing that needed to be in there or whatever, do you know what I mean? Don't always feel that you have to change it, I guess,
Mhm.
as well. It's like, and I don't, so, but a lot of the time it's like somebody might like ask you to expand on something or explain something a little bit more or whatever. That's kind of fine. But then, I don't know, there are other times where you just really solidly, instantly feel, no, you're wrong and I'm right. And I think sometimes those internal instincts are probably your style, maybe, and that's why you feel attacked, because they're attacking like the core of your writing or something like that. So those bits I usually just stand firm on, and I'm sure like I'll find in the end.
Yeah, definitely deciding there's a line. This is my creation, and I have to make it the way I want.
I think one of the things that that I learned to do after working with editors for a while was I always wait after I get their feedback back. So I usually try to wait like a week, maybe a little longer or less. I just can't be excited to read it because I'm about to read criticisms of my work, and I need to be in like a level mindset for that. Because if I'm too excited, if I'm like, oh, I'm really excited to read this, and then I open it up and the first thing I'm going to see is maybe positive comments here, but then negative comment, that excitement, yeah, exactly, it just tanks, the whole energy level tanks, and now I'm like reading it anxiously for like, what's the next thing they're going to critique and say I need to fix. And so I think going into it with a level head of like being calm and not too excited, not too anxious, just knowing you've got to also sort of like a little meditative on like, I've got to take this seriously and try to sort through what's the actual fix and maybe what wasn't a perfectly valid critique.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point about knowing where you need to be to get it, because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, oh, it's here. I'm like, the phone books are here. My critique is here. And I'm like running around like so excited. But at this point, you're not my critique partner or my beta reader if I don't trust you. Okay. So I know whatever I get is going to be somebody who's legitimately trying to help me improve. And I think that's a thing to just keep in mind is, this is not some random stranger I found on Twitter who's probably over there laughing because he made me cry. Like, okay, that's not what we're doing here. This is somebody who is legitimately invested in my project with me. And then the other huge thing, and especially at the beginning, guys, I know this is really, really hard. So just tell yourself on a daily basis, and after a few years, you'll start to believe it. But I am not my work. My work reflects me. My work is really important to me. I am not my work. So if somebody says, oh gosh, like this is just not for me, they have said that about a story. They have not said that about me. And it's a subtle but massive mind shift difference. And so this past week, I met with my critique group and I gave them some pages and I said, guys, I legit have some real concerns about these. Like, don't hold back on this. And one of my critique partners is like, it's good that you did this. Maybe now you could set it aside and do the same scene from scratch again. I'm just like, okay, yeah. And that's the first time she's ever said that to me. And I don't even know how many years we've been working together, but I knew that these pages were really rough, right? Like this is a safe space. I can admit that. But here's the thing. I was so glad she confirmed for me what I was feeling about, hey, I need some honest feedback on these pages. Okay. And if she had tried to, and she didn't say anything mean. Okay. And there's definitely a way to give tough feedback, but in a gentle, constructive manner, right? Like we don't get off on harshing people, but if she had tried to be like, it just needs a little polish, I would be wasting my time over here, as opposed to, yeah, actually, let's just get the bulldozer and get this done right. Okay. So now, again, my day job is in positive reinforcement. There are ways to deliver that in message, but ultimately it comes down to, I trust the people who are giving me that critique, that they're doing it too, because they're engaged and invested with me. So there's my little soapbox at the end.
It's a good soapbox.
Okay, so I kind of have a question, I guess, as a reasonably new beta reader and somebody who would like to, try to beta read again. I really enjoyed it and everything like that. Are there kind of like blanket things that like most people would want feedback on? Like, should you always give feedback on, say, pacing and character development, and like other like, you know, just basic blocks that you should always try and give feedback on, and then obviously hone in more specific on other things? Or is it really different with each like author kind of thing?
Yeah, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think you can. For certain. There are certain blanket things that I would say, yeah, you probably do want to comment on if it comes up. If you're reading a story, the things that I would say anything that doesn't make sense. That's like a blanket one you want to bring up. Like if a character is doing something and you don't understand why they're doing that, their motivation should be clear to you. Unless it's intentional, you should know later at some point. But I think so if you've got like unexplained character motivations, unexplained world building elements or something, if you didn't understand why magic worked here and it didn't work over here, so just sort of those logical building blocks that could potentially open up plot holes, or holes in characterization or holes in the setting, anything that you think may take a reader out of the world, or break something for the reader. I would say all of those, that's sort of blanket across the board for beta reading and critique partnering, unless the author tells you something's off limits. I'm not quite sure why they would say one of those things is off limits, but yeah, if they say something's off limits, generally you probably want to draw a line there.
Sometimes too, just whatever venue you're doing your critique in will suggest some, like if I'm reading 2,000 pages at a time, it's a lot harder to get a sense of pacing than if I'm reading, a whole novel at a time, right? And so there's bits and pieces I can pick up on, but I'm not going to have the big picture. So, and sometimes, I'm just, there are things I'm better at editing for, and there are things that my friend is better than editing for, and that's why we work in teams. So, yeah.
I'll also add, a lot of my beta readers were from World Anvil, and they were used to reading through an article and telling you what all you needed to change. And it was a different concept for them. So I had to work with them, because there was two of them that were absolutely stuck on trying to do line editing. I'm like, no, I don't need that. This is different. And so I had to really communicate with those two guys. Once they got it, they gave fabulous feedback, but they wanted to, and I'm like, no.
So real quickly, just because I think I might be wrong to assume that everybody knows what we're talking about.
Oh.
Developmental editing is, do I have a story? Is there an arc? Is there motivation for these characters? Line editing is this language pretty? Am I using the right verb here? Proofreading is, what is this semicolon doing here? And please send it home. Okay. I love semicolons. That's on me. But those are your three stages. They need to happen in that order. Because if I spend a ton of time fixing my commas and then it turns out I don't want that chapter, that was wasted time and effort. So.
Do you guys I have a Discord community where I kind of keep in contact with most of my beta readers and everybody, because that's just kind of where we ended up congregating. How do you keep in contact with your beta readers or critique partners, or however?
So they want to hang out with me. I just email. I just for me, I want something that there is communication there, but it doesn't feel pressuring. And I think email feels a lot less demanding than instant messaging kind of does. So not that Discord is necessarily that, but just I don't want my beta readers to feel like I'm sitting on their shoulder, because I want their honest reactions. So here's a list of things, but also here's some space to process it and get back to me.
Yeah, same. I think it also depends on where you or how you find the beta readers or where you meet them. Because if you if you meet them in the Twitch Writers Network, then you're probably going to be communicating more on Discord. But for most of the ones I met in person, and that of course translates more to email and maybe a Zoom call here or there, or just, a local cafe before pandemic times.
Yes.
If you need to find someone, go to a coffee shop, throw a mug. You'll probably hit a writer. There you go. Now they're an angry writer. They're going to start with the negative feedback. But we tried. So,
Laura, did you have any input before we head to the questions? LauraBones?
No, not on that one.
Okay. We do have a few questions, so I'm going to go through those, and then if we have a little bit of time, we can keep chatting at the end because we're at the 10-minute mark. So from Gwynifred, what is the difference between an alpha reader and a beta reader?
alpha readers are my friends. Beta readers are my productivity partners. Alpha readers are the people who see work really, really early in the process. And I would say they're closer to critique partners than beta readers. So,
anybody else have input on that?
Second.
Okay. The next question is from Misares. She said, I have a hard time giving negative feedback because I don't want to hurt feelings. How do you tell someone, hey, I think this character is super boring without hurting feelings?
Hey, let's ask the editor to handle this one.
That was evil.
Yeah, giving feedback is always it's always a painful game. Receiving feedback is always a painful game. That's sort of the exchange that we all enter knowingly. So if someone has asked you for your feedback, they have consented to receiving words of truth, which the truth is not always pretty. But you have to understand that they want this feedback to improve so that they can make their story as good as possible. And so you're helping them when you identify something negative about it. Try not to say it in a mean way. That's something that, you can try to, rather than, you don't want to couch it in positive things because that's just developing a bad sandwich. But you do want to say something, you can say something like, at this point, I kind of disconnected with this character here. I'm not really sure what they're doing, or maybe I'm missing something. But I don't understand this section. If you're a critique partner, your feedback could probably be a bit blunter than that. And you could say, I just don't think this is working, this character at this point. And you always want to suggest something positive as well as a critique partner. You want to say, like, at this point, I feel like this character should be doing something else. I feel like maybe they should be doing this, or would this work better? But this was confusing to me.
And I'm sorry, Laura, were you about to say something? Okay. So I think part of that, like Rhea said something really good about, if they've asked for feedback, they've consented to getting negative feedback as well. So I think sometimes where people get into trouble is we don't know what we're expecting. Like, hey, I wrote the story. Do you want to read it? Sure. Do you want feedback or not? Like that needs to be explicit, right? There needs to be, I need to know if I'm just sharing this, then you're telling me what's wrong with it. Now that's a problem. But if I have asked for feedback, then you need to give it to me. And if I have a problem with it now, that's my problem, not yours, because you did exactly what you were asked to do. So
when I asked for my beta readers and they're like, okay, what kind of feedback do you want? We're afraid of hurting your feelings. And I'm like, your feedback is gold. This is very important to me. Yeah, it might hurt a little bit, but it's gold. It's more valuable than gold. So
I think something that can also get you over the barrier of having to provide feedback to somebody is couching it in feelings language can also help, emphasizing the subjectivity of your feedback, because maybe they have, if they have another critique partner, another beta reader who doesn't, if you're unsure about this piece of feedback you have, you can say, I felt disconnected here, instead of saying this disconnected me. And that way, if another beta reader didn't have that same piece of feedback, you don't have to worry that they they're not going to take this seriously or whatever.
I found it interesting too, because I had 2 guy beta readers on my team and the rest were girls, and the guys were usually a little more blunt, and it was just kind of interesting to see.
There's a whole thesis there too.
I'm sure.
What's our next question?
Okay. Yeah, we're doing really good for questions. This is the last one in the queue currently. Is by Raven White. How did you get your line editors to stop, or how did you get your readers to stop line editing? Since I brought that up, I will answer first and then go around. I pointed, they were trying to give, they're like, this is taking forever. I'm like, it's just a read. And they're like, but I want to do my best. And so I asked them to give me a little bit of their feedback first, because otherwise they were, one of them was going to take 3 months because English isn't even his original language. And so I was like, just show me what you're doing. And I saw all these line edits. I'm like, no. Stop. This is supposed to be a heck of a lot easier. I'm not paying you. So I tried to emphasize this because he was used to doing critiquing of World Anvil articles, and he actually got paid to do it. And I was like, no, please stop. I had to really convince him. And so it took a lot of back and forth between us. So.
Yeah, I think just being clear about, no, I'm just asking for a read through, this is, and maybe, this isn't editing. It's not editing, right? It's just beta reading. So it's not editing. Don't do editing work. Just read it and give me an impression. I'm just after emotional impressions, do something that's as far away from editing as possible. So.
I mean, it's like asking for a book review. You're just, would you recommend this book to me? Hey, what did you think of Harry Potter? Did you like the plot? Did you like the characters? How did the story progress? Was it well paced? Excellent. Thanks for reading somebody else's book. Now can you do mine?
Yeah, so I was kind of just about to say, just imagine a friend who's, asked you, oh, you read that book, what did you think of it? What would you say to your friend then? Oh, it was really good for this. I mean, the characters were a little bit dull, but the story was pretty good. It can even be something as simple as just how you would explain it to somebody else that asked, what do you think of it? And it you can be as in depth or as not in depth as you like, really, to be fair.
Okay, we do have 4 minutes before I can count. Really, it's been a long weekend. We have 4 minutes left, so we can chat for just a little bit. But at 2 minutes, I'll start to do the wrap up. So, what have been the favorite things that you guys have seen from beta readers or being a beta reader?
Can you repeat the question?
What were some of the favorite things you've seen from beta readers or about being a beta reader?
Okay. Well, from a beta reader's perspective, and not just beta reader, but somebody giving feedback on somebody else's work, is that moment when the person comes back and says, I did it once just for this person on a Discord, and I just went through and I says, oh dude, man, I really love your writing. You just keep wanting to read and your characters are super interesting, whatever. And came back the next day and just, oh my God, thank you so much. I was ready to put this book down until you said that to me, and you've just made me want to keep writing. And just that it's just a little heart hitch that you thought, I've made a difference for this person just by giving 2 or 3 lines of come on, keep going or whatever. So for me, it's even if you're not beta reading a book and you're just giving a little bit of feedback to somebody, even just the slightest little bit of positive feedback or interest, you don't know how much that obviously means to the person you're doing it for. So getting back those little moments of, yay, I made this person happy.
That
really
happened for me with yours and everybody else. I was like, they liked it. Oh my God.
Guys, you need to understand, writers live in a constant desert, and anytime you can throw a piece of water our way, it's fantastic. Yeah.
So LRhea, did you have any input?
I think my favorite thing about the process, I like learning. So when I think of a critique partner and whatnot, I really like learning the things that I like learning how to become better at writing, and feeling like when I take that critique, when I hear what it is that I can fix, and then I get to implement it the next day, or I get to be thinking about that the next time I'm writing. They say, oh, you use this word a lot. And then now I'm writing and I'm like, oh, avoid the word dark. Don't use the word dark. And then but it's like a new challenge. It's a new thing to like work on and keep in mind. It helps me be more mindful of my writing. So I think that's something that I really enjoy. And then like I work in editing, so I guess there's a whole lot of things that I enjoy about giving critiques. But
Okay, we are at 1 minute before the hour. Thank you, Laura and Rhea. I really, really appreciate you guys being here with me and helping me. And sorry, I didn't have things quite as organized as I, but thank you, everybody, for jumping in and just being willing to just be open and chat. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the stream today, for the rage, for this. There was a sub. Thank you for just being here, for all the questions. You guys were a great audience. Thank you so much. So we do have events coming up, so I'm going to provide the links for those, and we will be rating Giving Strong Critique, so it'd be a good rollover from this by Steph Weave's Tales. So we'll head over there and be rating Steph Weave's Tales, and the Conduit shout, which I just learned last night, I wish I would have known the whole time, was Continuing the Conduit. So that is our raid shout. So if you guys don't know, I am Amy Winters Voss. This was Laura Van Arendach-Ba. We had LauraBones and Rhea, and thank you all for joining us. I stream on Mondays from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. It's been a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Happy writing.
Okay, we just did the raid.